songs that has all the trappings of a classic. Arike, the remix by Kumi featuring Simi and Mabel. It's an amazing piece of music. All right. So it's time for us to talk for development as we always do. And at this point, the appointment of an acting Inspector General of Police is the biggest headline in the country. But of course, what it has led to, the reactions, the responses, the perspectives to it. And I'm certain that for days, people will keep talking about it. Well, the appointment of Tunji Disu as acting general, Inspector General of Police, following the resignation of Kayode Igbetokun, triggered discussion about police hierarchy and retirement protocols in Nigeria. Traditionally, when a junior officer takes the top job, that's of the Inspector General, senior officers above him often retire to maintain command order and hierarchy. Now, with reports suggesting that several deputy inspector generals, DIGs, and other senior officers may be compelled to exit the force, the situation raises important legal questions about statutory rights, institutional norms, and constitutional propriety. So, what does the law say exactly? Well, before I get to my guest, who is a legal practitioner, I'd like to take the comments and thoughts of some people. Showore had a few things to say. Of course, he is not a fan of the Nigeria Police Force, but particularly he's not a fan of the outgoing IG of police. So we'd hear from Showore and then hear from a former police boss. And then we talk to my guest.
About 29 senior police officers will be relieved of their position from today as soon as this is sworn in, because they are, of course, his seniors. They can't operate under his command. But to be very clear, I am not here to praise Disu because they had told the country that he will spend 4 years. I was the only person saying he's not spending 4 years. He took my passport. I start in this country since last January, when he got a judge to take my passport, Justice Lehman, that the passport don't matter to me until we fix the police force. Because the problem with police force is the reason why Nigeria is in this quandary of terrorism, banditry, and whatever you want to call it. If the police was properly managed and led, our police can take care of problems of terrorism.
Okay. So that's Showore there, who is an activist and former presidential candidate, stating his position. But he's not satisfied with those who are meant to retire because an IG has been appointed of a lower rank. Now, Abutu Yaro, who was the guest of my colleague, Ifeami Andrew, on Morning Crossfire this morning, had another conversation with him. We reached out to him to ask about this whole retirement of higher-ranking officers when an IG is appointed. And this is what he had to say.
There's a difference between retire and resign.
Okay.
Resign means when an officer, an official, under personal compulsion, under personal impulse, on his own volition, decides to leave his paid employment. That is the resignation.
Okay.
Retirement. To retire means an official arising from policy changes or policy protocol is compelled to end the service. That is retirement.
That means that these officers would have to would now retire.
They will retire, and by our protocol, their retirement is automatic. They don't need to apply. They don't need to write. It's an automated protocol.
Okay, so all of those officers who were ahead, now that Disu is the IG, automatically are retiring.
Yes, they are automatically retired. As I speak, most of them are not on their desk today, and they have no reason to be there.
Okay, all right. We wanted to get clarifications on that.
All right. So that's the state of things. And, I kind of put myself in the shoes of those officers. You maybe have 5, 6, 7 more years till your retirement, and one day the president says, I like that man that is 5, 6, 2 or 3 steps below you. I want him to be the IG. And the next morning, you go and tell your family, it was fun while it lasted. Well, my guest is Henry Ekine, the National Legal Advisor Committee for the Defense of Human Rights. And maybe it's because we will have to discuss the human rights of the officers who are retiring. So Ekine is the right man for the job. Good day, Barrister Ekine. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sam, for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yes,
And
indeed.
indeed, more of my pleasure to discuss this particular issue.
All right. So let's look at what the law says. The police chief, whose voice we heard earlier, he used the word protocol. I've searched through different material, and some use different words to describe it. Some say protocol, some say that's how it is. Nobody actually says it's what the law provides. So I'd like to hear from you. Is there a legal requirement under the Police Act, the Constitution, or other laws that force senior officers to retire when a junior is appointed IG?
Thank you. I think it's important that I lay a foundation for the benefit of our listeners that the police is a public service, and then police officers are public servants within the purview of our laws, and their employment is regulated by law. By law, not by discretion, not by custom, not by protocols or arbitrariness. So having laid this foundation, I think it's important also to let our listeners know the principal, significant, or rather cardinal laws that regulate employment in the Nigeria police. So having laid the foundation that police officers are public servants, and then that their employment is regulated by law, and so having statutory flavor, you cannot do anything with respect to their employment other than by the provision of the law. And the relevant legal frameworks here include the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999, which is the ground norm. And it's even that Constitution that creates the police force. The Nigeria police is created under Section 214, and then, of course, making the police force a public service under Section 318, meaning you can't go outside of the provision of the Constitution and then the other enactments that were drawn from the Constitution to address any issue with respect to their employment. Section 318 of the Constitution is with respect to public service of the Federation, and that includes the Nigeria police. So police officers are public servants. Then the primary regulation of the legal framework with the police is the Police Act, which is like, permit me as a Christian, their Bible. So the Police Act 2020 deals with the issue of retirement of police officers. So you cannot draw from any other discretion or protocol or customary practice with respect to the retirement of police officers, other than from the Police Act. Precisely Section 18 deals with retirement of police officers, when and in what circumstances, just as the public service rules would also regulate. So clearly, Sam, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Police Act, together with the public service rules, will regulate the issue we are discussing with respect to retirement of police officers. So, and that is to the effect that police officers as public officers are to retire only when they have put in service 35 years of service. It's not different. And then upon attaining 60 years of age. So if you haven't served in the police force up to 35 years, then if you have attained 60 years, you are to be retired. And that is where the officer talks about automatic retirement. There is no other window for automatic retirement that on the date you attain 60 years of age, if you haven't served up to 35 years, then it's automatic, you're retired. In fact, before that day, you'll be preparing to exit. Or if you're younger than 60 years, but you have served up to 35 years, on that date of 35 years in service, you are going. And that is the public service rules. And that is the Police Act. And that makes us like a country that professes to be on the principle of rule of law. That's what the Constitution says, that Nigeria shall be built on the principles of rule of law and social justice and democracy. So that's rule of law, nothing more, nothing less. To that extent, Sam, to answer your question directly, there is no law. There is no provision in any of the bodies of our laws, not in the Constitution, not even in the Police Act, that says that a police officer shall be retired compulsorily by anybody, not even by the Police Service Commission, on the ground that a junior officer has, for whatever reason, become the Inspector General of Police. So for a long and short explanation, that's what it is. The law is that no such thing as compulsory or automatic retirement of senior officers upon the appointment of the junior officer as Inspector General of Police. Yes, in practice, the junior officer who has become, by whatever grade, the Inspector General of Police, which is a rank, has become the most senior in the police force. But that does not justify the automatic or compulsory requirement of maybe a Deputy Inspector General of Police or an Assistant Inspector General of Police or any other rank of a police officer that is senior in terms of service to that new Inspector General of Police. Look at what happens. What has always happened even in this country, in circumstances as it is now, it has happened before. Several police officers have been appointed as Inspectors General of Police at the time that they had seniors. You mustn't retire the seniors, even in those lower ranks, or you probably can give them certain appointments within the structure of the Nigerian police. It has happened, even very recently, where you had Inspectors General of Police who were junior to certain Deputy Inspectors General or Assistant Inspectors General, and then at some point, they give them other appointments within. So this narrative that has gone on, that automatically somebody has even said, oh, that's what you would see all the Deputy Inspectors General and then the Assistant Inspectors General, or anybody who is senior to the new Inspector General will retire automatically. The soundbite I just heard, the person was even saying they wouldn't have any business to find themselves even in their seat. They automatically be retired. Who says? That is a violation of the provisions of even the Police Act itself.
Yeah, but
and a violation, express violation of the provisions of the public service rules.
Barrister Ekine,
by extension of the Constitution.
So I like that you've told us the position of the law, and the retired AIG, whose voice you heard, Butu Yaro, who obviously was a police officer, is telling us how it has always played out. You know, it's like Nigeria Info, as well as other media houses, being regulated by the NBC, and you know that we have the NBC Act. And NBC says, hey, this is what needs to be done. But this is hypothetical, by the way. I'm hoping someone doesn't listen and think that's what happens. But we have things that we do here in the studios or in the office that does not align with the act. And then I'm a staff of the station, or maybe I've worked here and I tell you, this is what we do in the station. No. And somebody say, no, but the NBC does not allow this. Meanwhile, we've been doing this for quite some time. So a former AIG says, once an IG is appointed, every higher ranking officer retires automatically. And the reason for that, as he has confirmed and other cops, is to maintain command order and hierarchy. Because according to the structure, a senior man cannot be respecting a junior man because of appointment. So all those who, let me use the word disenfranchised, who before now had somehow retired, are you saying that they should not have retired? Are you saying that they should have stayed back and fought a system that went from culture to tradition? What would they have done?
Yes, I would answer that very straight. But let me say one thing. What is senior here? I think it's just probably a misunderstanding of the concept with respect to the retired Assistant Inspector General of Police. And I know when I get to even the authorities, you will realize that what they have been doing, right, which he said was protocol, and I've also mentioned that whatever had happened would have been discretionary or customary or some protocols. But I am speaking here as a lawyer, constitutional, that's why he called me, and he even asked whether there is a law to that effect. And I have said, and thank God he didn't say it's a law. There is no such law. That's established. Then secondly, even when that practice went on, there were people who have challenged that practice. And let me tell listeners who may not have even known that at least a single person or even a lot more had challenged that practice and they had stayed on. And even the courts have had to decide this kind of practice as unlawful, illegal, and null and void, to the extent that it is even a contravention to the provisions of the Police Act 2020. So I may excuse the retired Assistant Inspector General of Police the matter today, all of those who seemingly would have been seniors, and when you say seniors here, it's only in terms of their cause. Right now, they are no longer seniors to Disu. By virtue of rank, and that's why I was even wondering, where is the argument? Once if you were an inspector, assistant inspector general of police, even if you joined the police force before a Disu, and Disu now is the inspector general of police, you're senior. So the idea of this saying by protocol, I cannot take commands from my senior or from my junior. Who is your junior? By virtue of his rank and his current status, you're senior. So your argument of even being a senior perhaps is your enrollment into the police, not by your rank.
Okay.
So you may have there are people who have enrolled into the police at the lower cadre. Maybe you were not commissioned, and you are probably older in service in the Nigerian police force than an assistant superintendent of police who came in the academy. Is it not your senior? So sometimes I don't understand how we don't balance this thing. You join the police right now as they are recruiting, and then you join today. You do 4 years in service. If somebody graduates 4 years after now, gets commissioned into the force as an assistant superintendent of police, he's your senior.
Right, so Ekine,
but you take command from him.
we have to take a break now. We'll come back, of course, to continue this conversation. Please stay with us.
Yes, please.
Sam Chinedu here. If you just tuned in, we're talking about the appointment of Tunji Disu as Acting Inspector General of Police following the resignation of Egbetoku and the discussions that has followed about police hierarchy and retirement protocols in Nigeria. My guest is Barrister Henry Ekine. He is the National Legal Advisor, Committee for Defense of Human Rights, CDHR, and he joins me via the phone. You're welcome once again.
Yeah, thank you, Sam.
All right. So we've established that there is no law that supports this practice in the ranks of the force. And we have also established that some people are already victims of this, as will very likely be the case with Disu's appointment. Now, I'm concerned. What happens to the pensions, entitlements, and, of course, due process rights of those who have erroneously been retired?
Yes, I'm sorry too. Before you left, you actually had asked if those who are probably likely to be so compulsorily retired, though unlawfully, if they have any chance to probably join issues with that. The answer is yes.
Okay.
Before I explain that, and quickly, for those who, whether it's justified or not, but you accept that compulsory or mandatory retirement, of course, your pensions and associated benefits and entitlements, you're entitled to them, are due you to be paid, really. Okay. So, like I said, there is no justification in law, there is no provision in law with that respect. Just as any public officer can voluntarily retire or resign from office, you can see that is voluntary retirement or resignation from office. If you retire at a point where you are entitled to pensions, those who are in public service and the public service who understand the public service rules will understand what I mean. There is a period you would have served in the public service, whether of a state or of a federation, and you voluntarily retire or resign, you will be entitled to pensions. Now, all of those entitlements are still legitimate. They are due to you. So even in this unlawful and unconstitutional circumstance that some of our senior officers have suffered, probably accepting their fate, I do not imagine that their benefits and entitlements would be denied them. They are usually entitled to those benefits. But let me quickly say, because I made the point that there are officers that have rejected this unlawful practice or protocol, so to speak, in quote, and they've approached the court. And the appropriate court to approach is the National Industrial Court.
Okay.
Very recently, Moses Chitobo took, or rather, challenged this protocol, this practice, and of course commenced an action against the Police Service Commission. When the Police Service Commission thought that it was vested with the power to compulsorily retire a Deputy Inspector General of Police, Mr. Moses, in the same circumstance of a recent appointment. I think that should be maybe a good take or some of it, because it's just a matter that was 2023. The National Industrial Court in Abuja, in suit number NICN/ABJ/274/2023, unreported, but delivered by the Honorable Justice O.A. Obaseki Osage on the 13th of January 2025, just January of last year. So it's not that people have not challenged. He said, no, you cannot compulsory or mandatorily retire me. I am to retire in 2029. Imagine that Deputy Inspector General of Police would have been retired since 2023, while his retirement would have been 2029. What an injustice. He said no. And he approached the National Industrial Court, and the court held in his favor. And the court declared that kind of practice as unlawful, illegal, unconstitutional, and of course, a contravention of the Police Act 2020. So that justifies the point that it is not a practice that is known to law. So if any Deputy Inspector General of Police or Assistant Inspector General of Police in this context, where Mr. Disu has become the Inspector General of Police, and he agrees to retire and maybe to do something else, it's his choice. But if any one of them says, no, I'm not accepting, even if they say, okay, look, resign, so much, that is by your own, by yourself, any one of them says, no, I still want to be in the service. I like the service. I enjoy it. I don't mind. After all, today, Mr. Disu is my senior in rank. It doesn't matter whether I got into the force, as I explained earlier, 2 years before him, or a year before him, or 6 months before him. But by virtue of his current status, he's my senior. So any taking salute from him is not a derogation, so to speak, because I am an Assistant Inspector General of Police, and he is a Deputy Inspector General of Police. He's Inspector General of Police, so I take commands from him, even if I joined the force before him. That's probably by faith. So what we are saying is don't punish any individual as is seen today that they must. It's not a must. That the compulsory is not. That mandatory is not. Even when the Police Service Commission dared to do that, it was challenged. And then the Police Service Commission was strictly told that you can't do that and don't do that again. So that's the position of the law. I can assist in this regard. And then you asked, of course, I've answered that they are entitled to all of their benefits and their pensions, as the case may be.
Okay. Now, because this has been called protocol, and we're glad somebody has gone to court and it ruled in the person's favor. If officers do not, as a whole, challenge this process, will they need to challenge it moving forward, or just refer to the judgment that someone has gotten?
They can actually make a case that no, I'm not willing to, because I imagine in a state that professes to be built on the rule of law, that even the Police Service Commission will not dare to issue any instrument of compulsory or mandatory retirement like they did to Mr. Moses, and he challenged. But that instrument was pulled down. So I imagine that they wouldn't, because if they do, then they are the ones who are in contempt. And if they do, they are the ones who are actually showing it's an institution that does not uphold the rule of law.
Yeah.
So let us imagine that they do, and then, because anything happens in Nigeria, which is unfortunate, and I don't subscribe to that. But let's imagine that the commission does that again, and any officer says, no, I am not sure you're right. Please, you know that the National Industrial Court has actually held that this for 10 minutes. If they insist, then he will institute his own action, because the action by Moses Chichobo did not cover him. But when he institutes this action, of course, he will simply reference the decision that the same court had actually issued, if it has not been overturned by an appellate court. That's the procedure.
All right. And finally, this is just to get your opinion. How do you think this will affect public confidence in the police?
Really? That's even the downside of that kind of unattainable, if you like, a protocol that shouldn't even be imagined. It affects not just public confidence, but it affects the morale of police officers. It also, if you like, erodes experience. I tell you, by training, even the money we have invested in the number of deputy inspectors general and even the assistant inspectors general at the moment, assuming all of us, I understand that Disu coming from the ranks of the assistant inspectors general. So all the deputies, all the assistants will, if that practice is tenable, will be leaving. What about their training, their experience, the money invested in them, them even of training abroad and all of that? Is a waste. It should just be an erosion. Then again, for more of those in service, meaning that all of those in the line of the deputies and the assistant inspectors would not imagine what would befall them in terms of who will eventually become the Inspector General of Police someday. And then that's the problem. Again, for the public, for even juniors, much juniors, I think they're begging the question. It will definitely affect confidence. And that's actually what has been, that it's always been a talking point. Anytime, any year, a new Inspector General is appointed. And it's not just in the police. It happens in other formations of the armed forces.
Yeah.
When you appoint a Chief of Defense Staff, or you appoint the Chief of Army Staff, the Chief of Naval Staff, and the Chief of the Air Staff from junior ranks, you find that traditionally, customarily, those who are of senior rank will just exit. But even if they are ascended, like I said, in real terms, They are not even of senior rank because you were of senior rank yesterday, but the person you're referring today as would have been your junior is of a senior rank to you. But customarily, without explanation, those who have become of junior rank, but because the person who is senior to them was junior, seem to want to leave the service. So we have always said this, we lose expertise, we lose experience, we lose all kinds, even trainers. We ask ourselves, where do these people go? Do they even still become useful to the police force? So why can't they stay in and probably make them academics? And you probably put them to head the academy and the other training institutions of the Nigeria police so that they can probably impart their experience and knowledge in others who are coming up. But you want to retire them. And so they do what? So that was why some have argued that in the very recent past, they have always been there. There's a piece I was reading, right? If you read them, you will see that recent Inspector General of Police, very recent, over last year's time, there are seniors that were kept back, retained, who didn't leave.
Okay. All right, Barrister Ekine.
Recently, in the 2020s, 2022, 23, just maybe the last 2 or 3 inspectors general, there were seniors who didn't leave the service.
All right. Well, thank you very much, sir, for your time. Thanks for that clarification. At least now we know what the law says, but more importantly, the officers are acquainted with the law and hopefully they make the right decisions. Thank you very much. Have yourself a wonderful day, sir.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on this veritable platform. I appreciate it.
All right. So that was Barrister Henry Ekine, who is the National Legal Advisor Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, telling us that the law says nothing about what the police has called protocol. I'll take your thoughts now on this. What is, what was, and what should be. But once again, let's hear the retired AIG talking about, well, the police following this protocol.
There's a difference between retire and resign.
Okay.
Resign means when an officer, an official, under personal compulsion, under personal impulse, on his own volition, decides to leave his paid employment. That is the resignation.
Okay.
Retirement. To retire means an official arising from policy changes or policy protocol is compelled to end the service. That is retirement.
That means that these officers would have to would now retire.
They will retire. And by our protocol, their retirement is automatic. They don't need to apply. They don't need to write. It's an automated protocol.
Okay, so all of those officers who were ahead, now that Disu is the IG, automatically are retiring.
Yes, they are automatically getting time. As I speak, most of them are not on their desk today, and they have no reason to be there.
Okay, all right, sir. We wanted to get clarifications on that.
Well, thanks, Andrew, for reaching out to the AIG once again. And that is the position of the police, says by our protocol. Yes, indeed. Well, the legal practitioner says their protocol does not align with the provisions of law. And I find it conflicting, matter of fact, unsettling, because the police are the ones that should know the law. Another tag for police is law enforcement agent. So if the body saddled with responsibility of enforcing law does not know the law that governs their own structure, there is a problem. That means that many times the police have attempted to enforce laws that do not exist. If those in the higher ranks have been forcefully retired and the law does not allow that, and it has happened so much so that it is now called protocol, is this the police not knowing these laws? Is it that they know but they've just decided to? Now I have a lot of questions. But what do you make of this? You think hierarchy should outweigh years of service and experience in the police force? Are you okay with the way things are playing out right now? The appointment of Disu would very likely lead to the retirement of some officers who were considered higher-ranking officers according to protocol of policing, not the law. The numbers are called 0817-923-0002 0817-923-0003. Please turn off your radio as you call. Hello, good evening. What's your name?
Hello, my name is Mega.
All right, Emeka, it's breaking. I'm hoping it gets better. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Okay, go ahead.
About protocol and not protocol in Police Service Commission. According to the lawyer that's in your studio, he says, I want to ask, do you know that I know one of my uncles, he went to police and he used SSC and he now entered police. And, hello?
I'm listening. He used SSC and got into the force.
Yes, to the force. So at the end of the day, they now gave him that constable or what. But I have a friend of mine, that went through police and went through police service police school and also came out and they now gave the person 1 star. Do you know that my uncle has been working there for over 10 years before the young man came in as a graduate? So at the end of the day, my uncle will be loyal to the man. The young boy is his senior. So why are they not putting it in this idea of 18? How can they retire somebody compulsorily? And it's not, some of them have over 10 years to stay. Some of them have over 6 years to stay. It's a breach of fundamental human rights and abuse of a civil service process. So I am urging the people that is involved and they should sue Police Service Commission and let it be open. And let everybody should put mouth on it and stop those this I normally do. How can you have over 10 years to spend because they have appointed a junior officer? If they say you should retire, so where?
Thank you very much.
Is retiring back with poverty.
Thank you, Emeka. Muriel calls from Africa. Hello, Muriel. Good evening.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
This is your first woman.
Go ahead.
You know, as your guest was speaking, my mind was just taking me back to so many countries. And I asked myself, can something like this happen in the U.S.? I've looked at this same thing, what Tinubu is doing, Buhari did. You will fire, you will ask people to resign, people that have been in active service, until it gets to your kingsman or your tribesman. Not just an ordinary tribesman, the one you can trust. You must release people of the. At the end of the day, people are scared when it's time for them to enjoy, when it's almost time for them to get to the peak of their career. You just resign them. You know, they are still active, full of energy, preparing for that peak. You know, over the years, you just drop them. Maybe because they are not from your tribe. What kind of a country is this? I just wonder. So I looked at Jonathan when Jonathan was here. I said, maybe. Yeah, I know we've had Jonathan was good, was wonderful too. I think Jonathan was a very good leader. You know, at the time during the election, people were telling him, so many people were calling him, so many calls, drop Jega, drop Inspector General, drop somebody. He allowed them. He allowed them and allowed them to just get any outcome as much as, oh my goodness. Just look at what people did. He dropped so many people just to get this one. It is very, very unfortunate, very wrong. And real people, Nigerians, are just sitting watching. And that's how they can even do to judges. You know, the people that will conduct, that are in charge of conducting elections are just few months from now. They will drop others and bring in people they can trust, that they can use, that can manipulate the system. And Nigerians are just holding our hands, watching, nothing is happening.
All right, Miriam.
And those that have resigned, there is no change, there is nothing they can do.
Thank you very much.
They can't report to Civil Service Commission, nothing.
We have to move on now. Thank you. JJ from Rumi Bo. Good evening.
Yeah, Sam. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Sam, are you aware that not greeting your senior, somebody that entered the force, is having just one step above you is an offense in the force? Are you aware?
Well,
so if somebody you greeted yesterday, now they now promote the person, and you now start to greet that same person that used to greet you, how would you feel, Sam?
JJ.
Oh, Sam, let's talk now.
No, we're talking now. We are talking. JJ.
Good.
Are you doing better than everybody who you were higher than in school?
No. That doesn't count here.
If life is like that, why can police not be like that?
No. The police can never be like that. The army can never be like that. Let me tell you, I watched a video of a last corporal and a private. They were trying to open Facebook account and all those. So the other one was like, as soon as he opened the Facebook account for the senior one, that's the last corporal, the private opened a Facebook for him. He got the first follow, got the second follow, and the guy told him, your village people don't begin, they follow you. You know what he said? The order that he should be kept in the guard room for insulting his senior, just one small rank going to senior Ramon. Then an AIG is now appointed. Then you want the DIG to remain and begin to court for him. You know what in that court means? It's not making any sense to me. So, and I want to ask, all the people blaming Tinubu for this appointment, which of the presidents, be it Obasanjo appointed Tafa Balogun. Tafa Balogun was an AIG. You have DIGs everywhere. Who again, Jonathan appointed all those people. Most of, since democracy, most of the police IG are appointed from AIG. I doubt if any DIG has become IG. Unless on acting capacity, before you know, they throw him out and bring an AIG. So why is this one generating so much heat that this one is this or this one is not that? I don't understand. Because I followed up Ringio, Tafa Balogun, even this Ebetoku Kayode was an AIG when he was appointed. The people should be happy right now that at least people are being promoted, because Ebetoku was like a stumbling block that people cannot move, and the police were so angry.
Well,
now a whole lot of them will not be promoted. You know what it means? That it's either you are making money or you are being promoted. And that is the pride of the system.
All right, JJ.
And because of 1 month for 2 years, there was no promotion, and promotion has come, people are crying.
I have to move on now.
Let's not do this now.
Thank you very much. Okay, so basically, JJ is like, if you reach your turn, do as you however you like. I called the lawyer because I wanted to know the position of the law. I'll run through this very quickly because we are at the end of this conversation. The Punch put up a report of the DIGs that will be required to retire thanks to this protocol of the police. And oh my, I don't have a lot of time. Okay, so according to this list, and you can look it up on the Punch, the first name here is Frank Mba. And oh my, why is this doing this? Okay, Frank Mba, Mohammed Gomel, Adebola Hamzat, Yaya Abubakar, Basil Idegu, Zigu Kwazi, Idris Abubakar, Adebowale William. These are the DIGs that will have to retire thanks to this protocol. Like Ekine has said, if they are not okay with it, they can always go to the court. Well, that's it for this conversation. Stay with us.